Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Jen from Regional Health Center, part of the RHC team. And I'm here to talk a little bit about genetic testing, and more specifically, genetic testing in children. We do a lot of genetic testing in adults, and this is different than finding out your lineage. This is more educational in the areas of what supplements should I take? What type of illness am I predisposed for? What type of exercise is the most beneficial for me? And many other areas. So I wanted to go over and give you some explanation of why this is very beneficial to do it in kids. And so I'm going to share my screen. And just go over a sample report. So the company that we use is 3x4 Genetics, and they've been around for a long, long time. And so their genetic data or their information regarding your health and genes, their database is enormous, which is a huge advantage. This is really the only area that they're working in, rather than again working in the areas where you're trying to find out who your ancestors are. So we're going to skip over a portion of this report because it's just an explanation of what's within the report. I want to go over the areas within the report. And at any point, you can get a sample of this report on our website. That's www.rhcliving.com. That's rhcliving.com. So the summary for this person, and again, this is just a sample person, we're going to look at several areas. One of them is inflammation. Inflammation is high in this person. And then in each of these categories, so the first category is inflammation. We go over what type of dietary changes can you make, including very specific foods that you can add that would be anti-inflammatory in this case. But it's really nice to have an area where you can implement it on a day-to-day basis within what you're eating. You can implement nutritionally what would be best for your genes. Many times people say, what type of a diet should I do? Should it be a keto diet? Should it be a Mediterranean diet? Um, neither of those are necessarily bad, but there are certain diets that aren't sustainable for you because your genes don't match with what that diet template is. The next area in here is really exercise or activity, and talks about many different areas of activity. We're not just talking about what type of workout to do, but some examples of whether your body needs whether it goes quickly between sympathetic and parasympathetic, or that's a slow process and it needs more assistance. And then it gives you real day-to-day tools that you can use to determine what you should be doing to match with your genes for your ultimate health. This works for kids also. Then the last area of recommendation is within supplementation or remedies or protocols. And those are really important because we really do not get as many nutrients as we need, even if you're eating very clean, very organic. The soil has really been robbed of a lot of its nutrients. So even if you're eating very well, sometimes you do need some supplementation. And this will give you exactly what supplementation your system needs based on your genetics. So one category is within inflammation. The next category is within methylation, and this is your cell function. This is how your cells are functioning. We're going to get into the meat of this, so I'll go through this portion again quickly, is dietary recommendations, activity recommendations, and supplementation recommendations. So we had inflammation, methylation, blood pressure, very important in this day and age, and not necessarily for youth, but it is getting closer and closer. The disease rate is affecting children a lot more today than it used to. And so by knowing how your blood pressure will react genetically, then you can set your diet correctly and your activity correctly and your supplementation correctly early on. And this is one of the key points I want to point out about genes. So our DNA is set. That's who we are. But our DNA doesn't necessarily always express itself. So you may have within your genes the gene for a more likely chance of, let's say, breast cancer. But whether that gene will express itself is really determined on epigenetics, is really determined on environmental factors. And environmental factors are what foods you put in you, what nutrients you give yourself, what toxins you're exposed to. And so knowing this information, it's always better to do this in advance. We don't want to, well, we will treat you when you're sick, but we don't want you to get sick. We want you to be well, stay well, and live your optimal life. So number one reason to get this done with a child is to get this information in advance. So the next piece is really technical information for the physician and at the lab for us. Then it takes all of this information on the pathways and it summarizes it for us. So what you now see here is the cellular pathway systems, cardiovascular health, energy, activity, and nutrients. And we'll go through each one of these just quickly. So within the cellular activity pathway, high inflammation, high methylation, medium amount of oxidative stress, medium amount of detoxification. We'll talk about this a little bit later on how you can apply this information. Really, as a physician, we're concerned with looking at areas that are multiple areas that are very high. We see nothing off the chart in this sample patient. And the bulk of the time in youth reports, this is actually very clean. What we're getting is information on how we want to make sure that this patient takes care of themselves, or this person, this child, takes care of themselves throughout their life. But this, again, is just genetically what you're predisposed to. So this patient is genetically predisposed to increased inflammation. Their reaction to everything is inflamed. You can go out down and see the systems area. This patient is fairly healthy with the exception of, or I shouldn't even say healthy, this patient can be perfectly healthy. Their genes are more sensitive to and can be expressed with triggers more likely to have high mood and behavior, hormone balance, memory and brain health issues. Also, this patient should be concerned and very needs to closely watch diet, activity, and supplementation for blood pressure and vascular health. Their blood clotting chances, their blood clotting factors are not something they need to be concerned about. Exercise response is high. Their appetite or satiety intake also high. This is where this person will end up overeating and just not understanding that their body's not triggering them to say that they're full. This is great information when you're talking about kids. One of the programs that we do is a kind of a kids healthy eating program. We don't do it just kids individually. We do it kids and family eating program because it's very difficult in a family unit to feed kids separately than how you're eating. And we really want, one of the core beliefs of that program is that we want the kids to model after your behavior. And so we want you to know when you're full and indicate when you're full. We don't want you to overfill your plate. We want you to take the correct variety of foods. And we go through all of that in the family and children health nutrition program that we have. I'll put a link for that at the end of this. And it's good to know rather than say the clean your plate rule, which we don't advocate for. But in this case, you genetically would know that that kid will just clean their plate even if they're hungry or they're not. And then you set them up for behavioral issues regarding food. We go over all of that in the program. Just giving you making the point that this genetic information really helps assist you in what to do with your child and how to benefit them so that throughout their whole life they will be healthy. We also go through your response to exercise, and then the next category, activity, your recovery rate, your power rate. And most likely, are you going to be injured when you're doing activities? Many different areas. We'll go over those in a little bit later on in this report. And then one of these key areas that's just so nice for anybody who's recommending you supplementation to get an insight on how your body will process and where its true genetic needs are. And that's really important in this day and age when people are moving toward more all natural healthcare and are really looking for supplementation to aid their health. This genetic testing will give you very specific recommendations. Next, we kind of put this into an image report so that you have an understanding of where your areas are that you should be concerned, and then give more recommendations. So in this sample report, the methylation is very high. This person will need to eat foods rich in vitamin B, choline, and folate. Go through the same thing for inflammation, oxidative stress, detoxification with recommendations under each, mood and behavior. This is really a key one and very closely linked to environmental factors with children. Many of the children that we get in, they're coming in with behavioral disorders, and a lot of that can be cleared up just by changing that child's diet. And this gives me an idea, and the parents an idea, or is this child genetically predisposed to some of the behaviors that they're having right now? And how can we take action on that? So this patient, we would increase zinc and vitamin D just to help regulate that. Memory and brain health, histamine overload, hormone balance. This is really an important one at this stage in life to be looking at in children, because the rate of infertility is enormous in this day and age. And you don't want to set your child genetically up for that. And so knowing if they're predisposed in that area, you can make sure that you do not trigger the factors that would increase that risk, and that you can increase the likelihood that they will not have fertility problems later on in life. So it's talking about limiting exposures to toxins, eating cruciferous vegetables, and giving you very specific recommendations so that genetically you can make your child's system as sound as it can possibly be. Glucose and insulin, childhood obesity, diabetes, just on the rise in the US. It's amazing to me to watch this. And the bulk of this can really be regulated with diet. This is telling you how difficult it's going to be. This person's glucose and insulin response is low. They have kind of a safety or an insulated factor. Their body will process things a little bit easier in this area. Not everybody is like that. To have that genetic information gives you a closer idea and a better idea of how your body will tolerate certain things. Blood clotting, cholesterol, vascular health, cardiovascular disease. Again, I think it's still the third leading cause of death in the US. That would be great information to have so that your child never even has to worry about that they are set with the habits and the rituals and the skills and the tools when they're a child, that they can continue those on into adulthood, and it already decreases the risk for them. Same thing with blood pressure. It goes under the cardiovascular health. Bone health, osteoporosis also on the rise. Collagen and joints, and that I see a lot of. I'm a chiropractor, and so I see that area quite a bit. Excuse me, sorry about that. Next is the energy overview. And so, excuse me, we're talking about appetite and satiety, or the feeling of being full or not, and how that relates to this individual person. Their inflammatory response, the response regarding fats, excuse me, their energy expenditure and their exercise response. So this is kind of like what we a lot of times consider to be metabolism. And this is those people who work out, don't gain muscle, don't lose weight. This just gives an idea of what type of workout your body will best respond to. And weight management is one of our largest areas of care that we have with patients, and how we work with patients with weight management is not putting them on a diet. It's developing what their nutritional plan should be that matches their genetics, that will last them through life and have a positive effect on all areas of their health. We also go through the activity overview. So the types of exercises, the types of training, how long it will take them to recover, and how long it will take them to be able to work out again. So next we go over the nutrients overview. This is an area that most often adults want to know about. Is your caffeine response low or high? You may be one of those people that knows, I just cannot have caffeine. It makes me crazy. Or you're one of those people who can drink it right before you go to bed and it doesn't bother you at all. Child specific, there are a lot of caffeine additives. There's a lot of caffeine in children's foods these days that might give you an indication of where some of the behavioral issues are coming from, and whether you need to and you should always limit caffeine in your child's diet. Iron in the area of how your body processes and absorbs iron, fatty acids, choline, folate, just going through the nutrients. This is a very popular topic these days, and one of the ones that comes up based on a lot of GMO grains that are in some of these types of products lately. And so it talks about your response to gluten, your response and your need for vitamin D, salt, vitamin C, and vitamin B12. Now, all of that information is in relation to what your genes are saying. That would be a sample full report. The report looks the same whether it's an adult or whether it's for a child. It's just how we apply that information. So if you're looking or you're interested in doing genetic analysis and you'd like to order a kit from us and find out more information, you're always welcome to reach out to us directly. Our email is rhcteam, that's rhcteam@rhcliving.com. You can always find us on our website, that's rhcliving.com. And the genetic information, the DNA testing information is on there. And we also have a couple of courses coming up that are regarding, excuse me, that are regarding mindful eating and family nutrition so that you can take over some of the skills that you've learned and apply them in your home life. So that was a little bit longer than I thought. Thank you immensely for listening. And I hope you got some good information.